Well, look, it positions Toronto as, at best kind of a co-favorite, at worst just a tick below the Boston Celtics. I mean, look, the Celtics are going to get measurably better. I mean, they get their two-star players back. I was talking to some people in Boston about Jason Tatum. He has been in the weight room like every single day over the last 6 to 8 weeks. Working on that body. He's going to start going
We saw that in a video of him a couple weeks ago, that you could already see that he was a little more defined, a little bulky.
Look, he's never going to have that kind of, full fleshed out type of frame, but he's going to get stronger in the same way Durant
is
did.
totally different than size.
Right.
All right.
Durant got stronger.
And when you're dealing with basketball players, you want to deal with their strength improving compared to actually visually seeing them get bigger. Because I believe sometimes when you release statements like this, when people see the video, the guy's bigger. Oh, man, he's bigger. Yeah, well, not necessarily the size, but the overall strength, I believe, helps him in that second year.
So I would put Toronto right now as the number 2 team in the Eastern Conference, but there are still a lot of question marks, right, when it comes to the Raptors. I mean, Kawhi is going to have to show that he's able to play at the same level he once did. Nick Nurse, the coach there, is going to have to show that he can coach all these guys, that he can develop a relationship with Kawhi. There's going to have to be the elephant in the room, which is what does Kawhi do at the end of the season? How does that impact the locker room? So the Celtics, they go into a season, okay, sure, you want to know what Gordon Hayward looks like? Is Kyrie Irving all the way back? But they are as close to a finely tuned machine as you have in the Eastern Conference.
Can I ask a question just about Boston real quick? How can they be a finely tuned machine if they've never played a single game together? How does that exist? Like, that is the only, if Boston had added all these guys, if they had added Gordon Hayward in free agency, right, we would be asking the question, how will he fit with this Celtics team, with Jaylen Brown, with Jason Tatum, with Kyrie coming off injury, with Al Horford? Because he was already on the roster, we're acting as if we know how they fit.
Right.
They played 6 minutes together, right? Gordon Hayward is obviously an upgrade over not just Jaylen Brown, but it's the trickle down effect. It's Semi Ojeleye. It's all those things. But we talk about fit all the time in the NBA. Is that not a concern at all with the Celtics?
I don't look at it as a significant concern. I would say that, number one, the whole team besides Gordon Hayward did play together for a long time. I mean, more than half a season they were playing together.
That part is true.
And they were a great team. The second part, and I know you can read this what you want, but when you talk to people in Boston about what they look like with Hayward, they go back to the training camp. And guys like Kyrie and guys like Al Horford, they say it was one of the best training camps they'd ever been a part of. They were so giddy about going into that season with that group. And the third part is, you're bringing an all-star, a 20-point-per-game scorer back, but he's not a selfish player. I mean, one of the big keys for Gordon Hayward was that he was going to be one of the facilitators on that team. It's going to be Al Horford and Gordon Hayward as primary passers on the perimeter. So you're bringing a pass-first type of guy into a good system.
The reason why you can draw some of the conclusion that Mannix has drawn is because based on the personality of the players, where they've been, all of them, for the most part, have been system players, except Kyrie, and he's going to take over in the fourth quarter. The reason why also, aren't they the best defensive team? Okay? Now, because that travels. I don't know where you're going to play. I don't care who on the team. But when you start adding younger athletes, that's going to continue. So for me, with Boston, it's not just the totality of the young talent that they have. It is they are a great defensive team even without these additions. And all these guys, for the most part, I mean, you talk about Gordon Hayward. He played in the system at Butler. He played in the system at Utah. It's going to be easier for him because he's not a volume shooter. To me, he is the perfect role player. Why? He's already got a max deal. He don't have to prove it. All he's got to prove is he can come back and be healthy.
They were, one thing just quickly, they were very excited about the kind of two-man game stuff they could play with Hayward and Irving in that training camp. I mean, practically giddy when you talk to them about it. So I think that is going to be a huge weapon for them offensively.
So the reason that I am not just, and I looked it up this morning, Vegas says Boston is an enormous favorite to win the conference. They're minus 120. Philly, which would be my preliminary pick, they're plus 340, and Toronto's all the way at plus 550. So Vegas says Boston is the far and away prohibitive favorite. You mentioned they were the number one defense. That, to me, is one of the key wrinkles when we're talking about how much better Boston's going to be once they get all their guys back. Defense ain't going to be much better. Like, we know that. They were the number one.
This is the thing. I've seen you do this. Like, when teams are good, you're like, Well, how much better can they get?
Yes.
Well, if the
Correct.
bench is better, all those minutes get better. If you put a better athlete from a starter to the bench, those things get better. So the number of minutes that you're playing in these contests, it's higher level in each of those minutes. Of
course, the trickle-down effect. I agree with you. Like when Gordon Hayward, it's not just, will he play better than Jason Tatum did? It's the minutes he's taking away from the 9th guy on the roster, from Yabusele or Semi Ojeleye, whomever. I totally understand that part of it. But there are aspects of Boston that I do not think will be better next year than they were this year. They might be as good. The defense, you're not going to be better than the #1 defense in the NBA. We can all agree on that, right? And I don't think you look at Gordon Hayward like, oh, he's going to drastically upgrade our defense. Now, you will be better, as you were at the beginning of the season, closing out games in the fourth quarter, because Kyrie will be there for the playoff run you would expect, right? But there's other little wrinkles. Right now, do you know who the highest percentage corner three-point shooter in the history of the NBA is? You got an idea?
Kawhi, maybe?
No, Jason Tatum. So is Jason Tatum going to get better than he was his rookie year at that? I would say probably not.
No,
right?
but this is the thing, though. We got a year and the playoffs that now we have a recipe. Now we know the spots of where to get to him. So now we're not guessing. Oh, what kind of player is he going to be? So now you have more things to enhance that, because the NBA, they know that. So now we can force people to the corner and he can dribble drive. So we got more information to be better also.
I really think they're going to get off to the type of start we saw Boston get off in 07-08 when that group came together, like 22-3 or 28-4 to start the season this year. Because
didn't they get off to that start last year, basically?
When they lost their first two and won like 16 out of
in a row.
the next two. I think that's even better this year because all those bench guys, as Cris was mentioning, somebody goes to the bench. Maybe it's Jaylen Brown. Terry Rozier is on that bench now. Marcus Smart is going to come back. Daniel Tice, who is a good player for them, is going to be back in that mix. They're going to be really tough.
Can I throw another team out there? The Sixers, how much better do they get now next year?
I think a lot of it depends on how Ben Simmons gets individually better. I mean, the book is kind of out on Ben Simmons and the type of player he is and how you defend him. Now, I think the Sixers, they might take a step back because of their perimeter shooting, too. I mean, Ersan Ilyasova, huge part of what they did in the second half.
Yes.
Marco Bellinelli, huge part of what they did in the second half. How did they replace those guys? Who did they put into that mix? They bring J.J. Redick back, which absolutely was the right thing to do in that situation. But I don't look at the Sixers unless Ben Simmons takes a major jump as organically getting a lot better.
Okay, well, here's why the Sixers will organically get a lot better. Joel Embiid's going to play more than 30 minutes a game.
Okay.
He played 30 minutes and gave you 23 and 11, almost won Defensive Player of the Year. Ben Simmons, even if his shot doesn't get better, he will be better. Every great player gets better between year one and year two. And here's an addition, Markelle Fultz. Like, do we think Markelle Fultz is just permanently going to be unplayable, one of the worst #1 overall picks ever? Or do we think he's going to get back to a similar type of guy that made him the consensus #1 pick in a very good draft? Like,
I mean, all we know is the videos he releases. All there are slam dunks. So,
I would
you're relying on. I mean, I could understand. Yeah, in theory, Joel Embiid, his improvement, and Ben Simmons, those are significant. But when you lose that shooting, when you lose that space on the court, especially for Ben Simmons, it's going to affect him. And we can't sit here and say, you say that guys improve in the first or second year. You know why you say that? Because I told you that.
Well, but
we can't assume everyone is going to make huge, because that's a weakness. Oh, next year he's going to sharpen that. We can't just assume that's going to happen. We have to see it happen, and then we can. The reason why you give Tatum credit for being in the weight room, people have told you that, all right? You've seen it. You even seen on the video his body start to change. I wouldn't be sitting here saying that if I didn't have significant resources to be able to back up some of these things. You're saying Ben Simmons hadn't hired a shooting coach. I'm not going to keep saying he's going to improve his shot when he hadn't hired a shooting coach.
The Ben Simmons thing, we do have to recognize that up until the Celtics series, this is where the Ben Simmons conversation had gone, because Embiid missed that time at the end of the year, that he's the best player on the team. that he is the future face of the franchise, that he is one of the best assets in the entire league. He was the guy that led them on the winning streak at the end of the year. He was the guy that led them through a first-round series that a lot of people thought they would have trouble with against Miami.
I did.
All of that happened. And then they lose in 5 to Boston. And then we get far enough where, like, oh, they got blown out. And then we remember, oh, Brad Stevens really outcoached Brett Brown at the end of 3 of those games that Philly had won. And now all of a sudden, we look at Ben Simmons as if he's someone other than who he is, because he had a terrible playoff series against the best defense in basketball.
Even if he had great playoffs, Nick, we would still be saying, you know, man, Ben's got to improve that jump shot. That would not change.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.